There was an information that Jubin Matthews got while he was sitting in the headquarters that some militants had come and hidden in a house in the village next door. Immediately, a QRT was alerted. Now, QRT is a quick reaction team. These people are ready to get into a vehicle and leave for a mission in 5 minutes' time. That is the state of readiness. And they immediately got in the vehicles, left, and when they reached there, now I'll explain to you a little bit about the drill that happens when you do search operations in a building. There are generally two groups. There is an operations group and there is a support group. So the operations group was led by another captain, I don't know his name, so we'll call him Captain A. So Captain A was leading his ops team and Captain Jubin Matthews was here leading the support team. The task is that while the operations team carry out the research and sanitize the house, the supporting team is there to support them by firepower, by logistics, by anything that they need. Imagine now, they've broken through the door. There are drills for that, I'm not going into it. And Jubin Matthews is now standing at the door. And Captain A, who's leading the ops stream, first comes. You know, Indian Army officers lead. So he came first. And he got into the door. And then he quietly, with his gun, moves around and reaches the corner of the room. And he's scanning the room. And suddenly there is a bullet shot. Now, Captain Jubin Matthews just hears that sound. It's dark inside, I told you it's midnight. The only light that exists is some moonlight or some street lights outside. And he sees Captain A has fallen on the ground. What would you do if you were in Captain A's place? Anyone? What would you do if you were in Captain A's place? You know the scenario, if you were in Jubin Matthews' place, that your colleague, who is, we don't call colleagues, we say comrades, he has gone in, he has fallen down, you can't make out from here whether he is injured or dead. What would you do now? Anyone? Take a chance.
Somebody will duck down to avoid any shot.
You will duck down to avoid any shot, okay? Anyone else?
Duck down and try and pull him outside.
Pull him outside. But then to pull him outside, he's already reached somewhere where that speaker is. So that means he's already that much inside. So would you go yourself inside and pull him out?
No, because those guys are already inside there.
Sorry?
Somebody is shot, so somebody else.
Somebody's already there,
Yeah.
yes?
That's not a good idea to go in.
Okay.
Try to save yourself.
Try to save yourself. Okay?
You fire in the direction from where you hear the sound.
Okay. That is another option, yes?
See if there is any other entrance and try to go from that side.
Sorry?
See if there is any other entrance and try to go.
No, there's no other entrance. That option was not there.
You can ask your team to cover,
Yeah.
give you cover, then you duck and.
What he said is that you can ask your team to give the covering fire and you duck and you also go inside to save him. Well, that's a brilliant answer. So I'll tell you what Jubin Matthews did. And you know what happens is, and that spur of the moment you had so many answers. And you won't have time to think. Whatever comes to your mind at that particular time, you just do it. Yes or no? So therefore, whatever he did, right or wrong, is this, that he immediately did what he said. He ducked on the ground, he crawled. Because when you are crawling, you are a very low target. He went there, he tried to find his pulse, he couldn't, he was not sure. So he lifted him, we have something called fireman lift. So he lifted him on his shoulders and he's getting back to the door. And as he reaches the door here, there's another sound of a shot and this time it comes and hits Jubin Matthews in the right of his head. So I asked you, what would you do when a bullet comes and hits your head. So now the bullet has come and hit his head. But the only difference is that you're not wearing a helmet, he was. So he is not killed, but his brain got shattered. He was immediately picked up, taken to the hospital. In the meantime, Captain A was okay. He had just been injured. He was okay, he came out, he took some first aid. He was okay to take on the operations. But the JCOs and all junior commissioned officers, the operation continued. The drills are such that we have rehearsed every possible contingency, and then if none of those contingencies come into play, then whatever the next person thinks is good from his military training will do so. Jubin Matthews is taken to the hospital. He's given first aid. They find he's got a brain hemorrhage and things like that. So they put him into the next aircraft and send him to Jammu. He's admitted in MS Jammu, Military Hospital Jammu, and there he gets treated. After about a month's treatment, he's now okay. So he was given 1 month sick leave. Sick leave is given to those patients who don't need any further medical treatment, but they need rest. So you're given leave to go home, relax, and when you're okay, you come back. Not when you're sorry, it is 4 weeks sick leave. So after 4 weeks, you come back to the hospital, you are again checked, and if you are okay, you are sent back to your unit. If you are not okay, you are given further treatment. So he was given a railway warrant, that is our free ticket to board a train. He was given special reservation, and he was to take the night train to go to Delhi, where he belonged. Captain Jubin Matthews went back to the transit camp, did not go to the railway station. Next morning, took the convoy and went back to Srinagar. From there, took another convoy, went back to Kupwara and joined his battalion. When he did that, the battalion commander was quite surprised, perplexed. He says, "You should have been in Delhi." He said, "Sir, what will I do in Delhi? There's nothing to do at home. It's so boring. There is action here. I'd rather be here." He said, "But you are a medical category and I cannot take you on duty because that is against medical advice." He says, "Sir, please, I beg you, I will give you in writing that I am doing it voluntarily. Please allow me to do that." If you were the commanding officer, what would you think about this? What would you do, or what would be your impression? Anyone, raise hands if you have an answer. And please, this, I am not going to give you a lecture. It's going to be an open conversation. We're going to do a lot of interactions. So please be prepared to speak up because we want to interact. You have a conversation. Okay, anyone?
You will follow the protocol.
Sorry?
You will follow the protocol
You-
for him to work. I mean, if he's not fit, he should not be working here. So the protocol should be followed.
So protocol is that say no way, go back to Delhi. Okay, that is one option. Yes.
Commitment and loyalty is commendable, but I would also follow the protocol and ask the person to rest after.
Okay, good. So if you are a leader at any level, say you are the CEO of a company or a director or whatever, and you find some of your employees doing something which is as per rules not correct, but you also find that's a very good example, what would you do? Anyone?
I would let him or her stay, but I would ensure that the team helps them wherever they need their help.
Good show. You don't have this one. So I thought I'll bring one for everyone, but somehow I find I was short of them. So anyone who does something good will get this prize, and my prizes go by air. Okay. So if you don't catch them, they come back to me for another person.
Or your neighbor gets it.
No, neighbor will not get it. Okay.
So you coach him. I think you need to coach him out of that his thinking and try to convince him that it's not the right thing.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think the response that you've given is something which I would also say that it's good to see and great to see the motivation with which the guys come back. And it's always important to encourage these kind of scenarios because all of it is working on passion. It's never equivalent to anything else.
Can everyone hear that?
Yes.
He said it's good to encourage such people, and because he's shown his passion, his going beyond his sense of your call for duty and doing something good, we must encourage such people. Anyway, so this commanding officer was highly, highly impressed, and he thought that it was setting up a very good example for other people, but he also wanted to go by protocol. So what he did, he rang up the brigade commander, the next in command, and said, this is what has happened, what do I do? The brigade commander said, it's an exceptional thing, take him on duty, make him write a letter that he's doing it voluntarily, and set an example. I will take the risk. So, Jubil Matthews was kept back, and he told the commanding officer, he said, I can't deploy you, what's the use of keeping you here? He said, sir, the battalion has 20 officers authorized, we are only 12. And if I go away, you will be left with 11. And out of 11, one will have to be in the headquarters all the time. So let me be in the headquarters that you still have 11 people to be deployed. Look at the bigger picture the young captain is thinking about. Anyway, so he stayed back. He stayed back, and after another week or so, there was another operation. He again happened to be on duty. He did not care about any orders, and he also went for that operation again, despite his problem. He got hit with a bullet, not in the head this time, on his knee or something, for the second time. Can we have an applause for Jubil Matthews? My question is, how many people in the corporate world or the business world do you think would do such a thing? Sorry?
Not many.
Very
Not many. So a lot of people say no one, and I say no, that's not the correct answer. I have known of people. I recently did a TEDx talk in which I talked about the Taj culture. What happened in Taj in 2008 when the Mumbai terrorist attack took place? Taj people did exactly the same stuff. You know, there is a Harvard study, I'll tell you, where they gave the scenario, and they said that there were 270 employees of the hotel in the hotel that time, and each one of them knew the way out from behind. How many people do you think would have stayed back, and how many people would have left? The Harvard study said the maximum that everyone said was 20%. And they were surprised when they were told that not a single person had left the hotel. When they knew the path, they knew how to get out and save their lives, they did not. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not too sure about the numbers, but about 30 odd people laid down their lives to guard the visitors. And there is a very good YouTube video, if you see, where Adani has mentioned that he was having dinner that day, and he said, we finished dinner, and he had a guest, so he said, let's go. And when they were just about getting up, this guest said, can I have a coffee before I leave? And he said, why not? They sat down for a coffee, and before the coffee came, this attack took place. He says that the waiters and all, with no instructions from anywhere, they told them, you get under the tables, and they stood outside to guard them. And there was a lady who was a restaurant manager, and she took control of everything. She got all the waiters lined up and all. A young girl, and she managed the entire thing. And he says, we are sitting on the table, under the tables, and they are all standing and guarding us. Right? And he says, if my guest had not asked for a coffee, I would have been in the lobby and I would have been easily in that line of fire. So it does happen in the corporate, but it happens very rarely, whereas in the army it happens very often. Now the question is, I don't know what Jubin Matthews, whether he has a brother or not, but I would say hypothetically he had a brother who was born in the same house, under the same parenting, went to the same school, went to the entire environment together, and then went and joined the corporate. It is quite unlikely that he would have done what Jubin did. Why? Why is the question? Why does he do it and not he?
Because he had military training.
He had missed the training. So training is one. Okay. So I'm asking a question. Why do people in the army do it? And your answer is training. Anyone else?
Passion.
Passion.
The love for country.
Something from within. Where does it come? Because where do you get these people? When you recruit people, where do you get people with passion?
Because somebody who's going to even go to the front line or something like that has to have that
Mindset.
something beyond passion, I would say. Because otherwise, how do you do it?
It's a
Exactly.
different drive
So no
and
fear of
mindset
death,
of people who join.
No fear of death. Let me tell you, everyone
That's
is.
not fear.
Everyone has that fear of death. There's no doubt
I
about
think
it.
there's a common purpose.
Sorry?
There's a common purpose for
There's a common purpose, yes. You know, people say patriotism, and I would say, how many of you are patriotic? Are you or no?
Yeah.
I think you're as patriotic as we in the army are. There's no difference. Right? Discipline, yes. Training, yes. All those things matter. But what if I tell you that this is not what people die for? We in the army are prepared to die for my Paltan, Izzat of the Paltan. Paltan ki Izzat. Now, Izzat is not the meaning of the word that you see in the Hindi dictionary. This Izzat is, unless you have been in it, you will not understand what this Izzat I'm talking about. मेरी बटालियन का नाम इतना जरूरी है कि I will not compromise that for anything. We die for our comrades. I thought it's only in India, but you hear Simon Sinek. How many of you follow Simon Sinek? Watch some of his videos, and if you really want to see something of what I am talking about, there are a lot of very, very interesting videos of his. If you just say Simon Sinek military leadership, and you will find a lot of these things. So one of his videos, he says, he's talked of a similar situation, not exactly this, I mean this was too much. That was just that some people had taken part in an operation, they were injured, and they were being taken to the helicopter for evacuation. And when they were doing that, the commander went and he kissed the forehead of the sick person. The officer kissed the forehead of the sepoy. And he says, I asked them, why do you do it? And the answer he says we always get is, he would have done the same for me. It is this feeling. So I tell you, when I got commissioned in the army, my first posting was in North Sikkim. We were short of Nathula, which you have heard of, and I was posted in a place called Yakla. Yakla is another pass, La is a pass. So Nathula is the highest pass, Yakla is a close by pass. I was there. You used to get a letter. If my mother wrote a letter to me, it used to come in about 10 to 20 days. The newspaper used to come somewhere in about 5 to 6 days. That was the story. You get up in the morning and you see white snow and Chinese in white uniform. You never saw any color. You never saw any girls. There was no TV in those days. It didn't exist in India. I'm talking of 1971. And you know the feeling that came to my mind, that if something happens to me, it is this guy next to me who's going to come to my help. My brother, my sister, my parents, my friends are nowhere there. So when that feeling starts coming in, that we live for each other. And why we don't care about religions and all? Because if something happens to me, whose blood will I get? Whether it will be of a Muslim, it will be of a Sikh, it doesn't matter. As long as the blood is human and red. That's it. Right? So when we say, sorry?
It's team spirit.
Yeah. So now, the question is, where do these people come from? Do you think these people are imported from Mars or Jupiter? They come, or they are imported from some other country? They come from the same villages, the same schools, colleges that you all come from. So what is this? Training, discipline and all that. But beyond that, there is something, sorry, I think I got the wrong slide. Okay, we'll come to that later. The answer is organizational culture. It is an organizational culture. So can I tell you or ask you to think about what I have said and say, can you build an organization culture in your organization where people care for the organization more than themselves? Towards the end, I'll show you what IMA taught us, and every day we had to say that prayer or that motto, which is now called the Checkwood motto. I've kept it for the end just to leave you motivated and inspired on that. Where you've been indoctrinated, you've been brainwashed that your country is most important, you are not. And that is when you start saying to your people that my company is important, we are important, not I, the game will change. Okay, so now, what is the corporate world outside? What is happening? What is happening is that this is a McKinsey report which says that 77% of the organizations say that leadership is lacking at all levels. Right? 69% of the millennials have said that there's no skills development in leadership in their organization. And 83% businesses say that it is very important to develop leadership at all levels. But it is ironical that only less than 5% of the companies in the world are implementing leadership development across all levels. This statistics is about 8 to 10 years old, so it's not latest, but how much would have improved? That is left to your guess. Right? Now, Sun Tzu is a Chinese philosopher, strategist, soldier, and he is probably the only one who is familiar or accepted both in the Eastern and the Western worlds. And he has said, he lived 2,500 years ago, and he wrote this book called State of War. When you see his quote, he says, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated in 100 battles. In his book, if you read State of War, Art of War, there's also a very small version. I've got that. It's like a pocket notebook, and it gives you basically quotes. And I'll strongly recommend that you read them, because if you want to become a better leader than what you already are, and you want to brush up your leadership skills, you see, he says, he's never, because that time corporate world didn't exist. So there was a time when I was told that he said that whatever is true for battles or for state of war is also true for business. But then I found out the authentic part. Corporates and business and all didn't exist in 2,500 years ago. He didn't say that, but if you translate that, whatever he said, you will find that logically that is quite true in that way. Right? So now, the question that a lot of people have asked me when I say, okay, I am talking about battlefield to go through, I am talking about the military leadership lesson that you learn and how can you apply in the corporate world. How many of you also got this question in your mind? I have nothing to do with the army. Army's aim is different. My aim is different. My company has nothing to do with winning wars. We are into a profit-making business. Why should I learn from the army? How many of you think that way? And this question is quite natural. But I now tell you why it is important and why should you learn from the army. So my first thing that I say is that this is my belief, and I'm open to questions, I'm open to disagreements, that military leadership is the mother of all leaderships. Why? In no other form of leadership is a leader expected to lead his people, his teams, to face the very hardships of climate, terrain. You don't go to Siachen, you don't go to Jaisalmer to, where you are got 48 degrees Celsius, and I've lived in 48 degrees Celsius. I've lived in minus 30 degrees Celsius. Without a war. So you don't have to do it. And no other leader has a responsibility to lead his people into battle where you know that bullets are flying. Every human being has that fear of death. Why would somebody go into a barrage of fire when the bullets are flying around? So therefore, if you can influence your people and say, come with me, we'll go, and they come, they don't run away, it's certainly a leadership which is influence. Like John C. Maxwell says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Right? So if you have to influence people, where can you influence people more than tell them to come in such a danger? Simon Sinek I just quoted, and he says in one particular video, he says that we don't say whether army military leadership is better or corporate leadership is better. We don't say that. We say they're different. Both have a different purpose. But lessons in the army are easier to be seen because what is good is really good, and what is bad is really bad. It's so exaggerated that you can discern the lessons from the military operations much easier than you would do with case studies in the corporate world. Right? So easy to comprehend. Then he also says that here, with all the AI, with all the technological developments, the human connection remains very, very important, and we cannot ever do without human connections. When I landed up in my battalion to Bihar, on the very first day when I got on parade, I was told to get a register from the canteen, and we had 30 people in my platoon. Write down on, like you open the register, on the left you had to write down their complete biodata, which is given to you in a form, so you have to copy it down. You have to write it down. There was no printer, there was nothing, not even cyclostyling existed those days. And later also we got cyclostyling. So we used to take a carbon paper and write for 2-3 pages, that's all. You couldn't write more than 3. So that means for 30 people at least you have to write it 10 times. So left, you wrote everything about that person, where he comes from, what his parents do, what blood group and all that. And then on the right side you wrote your 2 columns, good observations and bad observations. So when you have to write his appraisal, which we call the annual confidential report, you had a record of what good things he had done, what not so good things he had done, so you knew him well. I'll give you an example here. I was just about 2 to 3 weeks old in my battalion, still getting used to what's happening. Suddenly from a cadet, 4 years of rigorous training and you become an officer, so you think, oh, I'll become a great guy. But when you go there, you suddenly face a lot of funny things that you never imagined. And one thing in the army, they never tell you what's going to happen on the other side of the fence. So the day you land up in the battalion, you face a very different environment. Anyway, so I had a battalion commander, a company commander, and my company was the topmost company. We used to come for dinner and we had to walk up over 35 to 40 minutes climb to get back to our company. So en route, he used to tell me a lot of things. And he told me that I need to know, he said not more than a week, I should be able to tell him the names of every one of my 30 people. I did that. We were not allowed to stay in officers' bunkers. We stayed with the men, ate with them. The men used to walk, have a bath with a drum of water, and you got into your underwear, and you went there, and with a mug, you took a bath where others were taking their baths. So they knew the variety of underwear you wear as much as you knew. Okay, with all that, we knew our men. I don't know how many of people in the corporate world take some time to know their names. If they just know their names is good enough, but we know them. wife's names, you know the children's names, and all that. So human connection is very important. And so I was telling you that this guy walks up to me and he says, I mean, there's a procedure, so he comes up, he marched up to you and all. Sir, chutti hai, I have to go and leave. So I said, yeah, go. Any problem? He says, sir, my mother has fallen down and her right knee has been fractured, so I need to go. I said, yeah, please go. So he went. When he came back, the games period was going on. I saw this chap. I said, Joachim is around. So Joachim Kharko was his name, Adivasi. He came to me. I said, आपकी माता जी का दाहिना घुटना कैसा है? How's your mother's right knee? And that one question made him so loyal to me that he would do everything I tell him. Why? Because I knew, I connected with him that even after 20 days, I remember that he had gone on leave for this particular purpose. I got to understand the meaning of knowing people by names, knowing about them, and having a great idea about what are their challenges in life. Right? The last one is trust and performance. So let me explain this to you, what this is again from Simon Sinek. He says that if you make a graph, I'm just thinking, is there something where I can write? Yeah, there's a whiteboard there. Can I try that? Will I be able to